what's to this idea of identity lags and feedback loops? So I have a story for you. I was a scholar, believe it or not, at one point, and luckily I was chosen to go on a trip to deliver um, my working thesis up north in Berkeley, right? A highly reputable institution, right? And at the time, that was a big deal for me, and so I took it in stride. I was excited, and there was going to be other schools and other quote unquote scholars there at the symposium. And so naturally, there was going to be a lot of pretty women, of course. Um, so I get to Berkeley and I spot this girl that naturally I gravitate towards. And the last night there, we got to go on a boat, um, little a boat on the bay, nice little dinner and everything. Anyhow, so I spot her and I was like, well, back then my game was weak, if I'm being honest. So I wasn't the most adept at it, right? I lacked a lot of common sense. But anyhow, managed to like speak to her. We hang out, we talk. She lives a few hours away, but we keep a fairly open relationship in that regard, right? We were talking and we would hang out from time to time. I would visit her. She'd either come here or we'd meet halfway or I'd go there. And I remember her saying something to me that didn't really resonate. I didn't really understand, and nor did I agree with. But she had told me that, you know, that, that I was a player and that, she was, kind of going in that direction about how, I was a ladies' man and whatnot. And I couldn't understand, part of me was like, damn, I wish this was true. But the reality was it wasn't. But looking back, she was anticipating my future. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Not to say that that's a good thing, but the compliment is there, which is what? Which is that you have the ability to do more than you're doing, and you're just not taking full advantage of it. So that was sort of an interesting take because nor did I believe it, nor was there any actual work behind it, right? It's not like I could say, yeah, that's true. You're right. The reality was I wasn't living up to my expectations because I had that identity lag. I didn't know who I was. I still thought I was a little ugly goofball from before. And so the transition period, it took me a while to catch up. And like, that's what I mean by the feedback loop is that uh, women are an interesting sort of feedback loop, right? They kind of, that's a true test to where you are. It's a testament to where you are, right? And if you're not where you need to be, then you need to maybe reflect and see what you can do better. But that was one of them. The other instance in which I had sort of an identity lag was for the majority of my life, I was a struggling student in the sense that I was not intelligent, and that's just subjective. I did not have the good grades. I wasn't blessed with intelligence. The only thing I really had was just the dog in me. I was a little rooster. I was a cockfighter, So in that regard, I had that going for me, right? I was naturally inclined to be a fighter, and so that sort of idea translated academically with me persevering, right? Being a glutton for punishment, even if it wasn't what I wanted to do, because I didn't know any better. Um, I forced myself, right, to get quote unquote intelligent. And so what I did was I read avidly, widely, as often as possible to try to get myself um, to get what I couldn't get from school, right, or what other people around me naturally had, which was intelligence. At least intelligence that could be measured academically or in any which way you want to measure it. But I didn't have that, whatever that was. And so when people tell me I'm intelligent, it sometimes, kind of takes me aback because I used to be called stupid. I used to be called dumb. And so it takes me a while to recognize, like, okay, so the perception has changed. Um, Not that it even should matter, right? But when you're young, I guess you need the accolades, right? When you're older, it's like, who cares? I know who I am. So my identity is crystallized. I don't have any doubts about anything I do because I realize, like, I can't possibly capitulate to everyone's demands. Otherwise, then I'm just teeter tottering, right? This person wants this out of me. This person wants that out of me. And I don't get anywhere, right? I'm just constantly morphing into what others expect of me. and I refuse to kowtow in that direction because I've done it before, and then I realized like I don't even know who I am at this point. So I'm willing to go on a limb and just trust my gut and say I'm who I'm supposed to be. And if it unfortunately repels certain people, then so be it. But back to the feedback loop thing, it's interesting because one of the testaments to the feedback loop of women being the probably the best feedback loop is that as I was improving, the girls were getting prettier, and it wasn't because my quote unquote game was better, or it was tight, or I was somehow getting better with the ladies. It wasn't that. It was just that I had put in enough work that it was starting to pay dividends. Right, my stock was raising, and for many reasons. Right, it could have been style, delivery, personality, intrigue, interest. Um, I was an agent of chaos. And so a lot of times it's not very difficult to stand out when everybody around you is boring. So it's not really a testament to what I'm doing, but it's more of a testament to what everyone else is doing. And so the game isn't that hard when everyone around you is a dork or when everyone around you is a degenerate. And so these extremes are kind of there. And so when someone stands out positively, then it's quite easy to have impact, right? To leave a mark. You don't really have to do much. You just have to, and I know this sounds terrible, but just be yourself. And the right people will find a way to be around you. And the ones that don't need to be, then they just don't need to be. And you shouldn't be upset about that. But the feedback loop is such an interesting concept. And also just the identity lag, being okay with it does take a while to figure out who you are. And then when you do figure out who you are, it does take a while also to kind of accept it because if, like me, for so long, things have been a certain way, it's kind of hard to get away from that, right? Because you sort of think that it's not in your grasp, it's not something that's for you. You have a hard time accepting the good, right? Because you've been so used to the bad. So just give yourself a break in that regard. But identity lags are an interesting thing, right? Because it takes a while for that to cement and be part of who you are, and you accept it and you appreciate it. And you're obviously gonna not take it for granted because it wasn't always that way. So think about that. See you in the next video.